Hello and welcome to Never Miss a Monday. I am your host, Stacey Garcia, and I am absolutely thrilled today to introduce you to today's extraordinary guest, Jaycee Gossett. Jaycee is a multifaceted individual whose experiences and expertise span dance, media, wellness, and personal growth, all of my favorite things. As a founding teacher and chief experience officer at the class, she integrates movement, music, and mindfulness to foster emotional and spiritual well-being. Her background includes hosting and producing for the Travel Channel, Z Living TV, and Amazon Prime, as well as competing in ballroom dance. Welcome to the show, Jaycee. It's so great to meet you.
Thank you, Stacey. I'm so excited to be here and be in a conversation about our shared love of movement and dance and transformation and spirituality. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. You know, Scott Slaughter, my producer, introduced us. And I have to say, Scott, you have really introduced me to some extraordinary people. And I'm so excited to have Jaycee and just learn so much about you. We'll just get right into the fact that we're both dancers. You're actively teaching at the class. I would love to hear about the class, but I would like to start with your background and when did you start dancing? Do you have memories of beginning dancing? And what type of dance did you start out enjoying and loving?
Okay, so my earliest memories of movement really come from my mom having me in dance lessons pretty much as soon as I could walk. I think she was probably looking for something for me to do to channel my energy. And she wasn't a dancer herself and was really excited she had a bunch of children before me that were boys and they weren't interested in dance. And so then when it got to me, she was really excited to be like, okay, well, maybe this one is going to be interested. So my earliest memories are, the little blue leotard and the white tights or the pink tights and the little shoes and just kind of bopping along to movement. And my parents played a lot of music in my house growing up. So music was always something that just really resonated with me. And those early memories of dance, I was too young to probably know what actually was happening, but I know that it was something that felt like it was a yes for me. And then as I got older, it started to deepen into this experience that really became more medicinal. It was the laboratory. It was where I worked out my emotional self, my expression and communication. It was where I went to make sense of things that I didn't know how to make sense of that I was feeling. And that process of movement and breath and music, it always made me feel better. And not just feel better, it was I was coming back to myself. I was clear. I was grounded. Whatever the noise was before wasn't there anymore. And it was always propelling me forward. So I'm so grateful for my mom first putting me in those lessons. And it just kind of stuck. It was ballet and jazz and tap. And then as I got older, I started gravitating a bit more into the world dances and wanted to learn belly dance and then got into the Latin ballroom dancing. And that really unlocked a global movement about how we move our bodies and how it says so much about our culture and the way we connect.
That's so interesting. I love this. Okay, so let's go back to what your parents played music-wise. Do you remember exactly what they played?
Yes, I remember my mom playing a lot of Beatles. She had a Rod Stewart phase.
Okay.
And then my dad was into gospel, blues, Johnny Cash.
Wow.
Yes, he brought a little more of the blues country gospel, and my mom was definitely more. She was really into Michael Jackson for a period of time. And she would blast music while she cleaned the house. And I was the person that was enrolled to help her with cleaning the house. So my early memories of her just blasting music and cleaning and dancing while she was cleaning and I do that to this day. When I'm cleaning my house, I put the music on and I'm just kind of bopping along as I'm doing my thing.
I love that. Okay, so there's already similarities here. So my mother introduced me to the Beatles. Sergeant Pepper's was the first album I ever owned. And I was a Beatles fan since a little girl. Like Beatles was everything for me. So I totally grasped that. My father was all into like American standards. So
Oh,
Steve and
wow. Okay.
Edie, that was, I mean, I think he's probably seen them live in concert before they passed probably a dozen times. And it was like the Rat Pack. And so like when Michael Bublé came, I was like, oh, this guy is just everything to me. So I had
Yes.
all of that. My mother put me into dance. I don't know how old I was, probably the same age as you.
Mm-hmm.
I was really teeny tiny. My
Mm-hmm.
mother was a professional dancer and my grandmother was a professional dancer. So I was
Wow.
third generation. And my sister also was in dance and she was so talented, but she wanted to really be more behind the screen creative. And I really wanted to perform. And so
Mm-hmm.
we kind of went those separate directions, still in the arts and everything. But that's so interesting to me. And I have a sign in my kitchen that says, "In this kitchen, we dance."
I love that. That's
So
so
when I'm
fun.
cleaning, when I'm cooking, we are dancing. And strangely enough, and it's so funny to me. So, how many brothers, older brothers, do you have?
So my mom had four boys and then me, and then my cousin lived with us growing up. So there was five boys in the house and
Wow.
myself.
Wow. Okay. So I can just picture all of that. When I had my daughter, I was like, "Oh, she's going to be fourth generation dancer, right?" And she was in ballet and tap since she was 3 years old. I think she lasted a year or two, and I remember seeing she didn't have the same happiness spark that I had when I was dancing as a child. And one day I sat her down and I said, "Ava, are you doing this for you or are you doing this for me?" And she said, "I'm doing this for you." And I said, "You don't have to do this anymore." And that was her
Wow.
last dance class.
Good for
But
you.
my son, I think, and he's not in traditional dance yet, he dances with me in the kitchen all the time. So I think
So
he might
fun.
be more of my
Yes.
dancer in the
Yes.
family.
Kindred spirit.
He is my kindred spirit. So I think that's so amazing. I love hearing how people start off in the dance world.
Hmm.
And so you really got into Latin ballroom dancing as well. Is that correct?
Yes, as I got older and I started kind of clicking through the dances and I was just looking for I realized that while I'm so grateful for the discipline that ballet and jazz like and all of that gave me, I realized that I was like looking a bit more for expressive
Mm-hmm.
dance.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first saw partner dance, I had a friend who
Mm-hmm.
was a competitive ballroom dancer. And this was kind of around when swing dancing had a big boom and
Oh,
also Jennifer Lopez came on the scene and like salsa had a big boom. And because it was making its way into the mainstream, I was like, okay, I'm going to take lessons. And I want to, at the time I was living in LA and I wanted to be able to go out to some of those clubs and be able to dance. So I wanted to learn it. And so the woman that I was taking dance lessons with, she ultimately became my friend and she was a competitive ballroom dancer. So she invited me to one of her competitions and it was at like an airport hotel somewhere near LAX. And
huh.
it was like started at like 7 a.m., something so early. I was like, what are you even doing at this time? Like, how are you even, what is happening? And there I am at the hotel watching everybody get ready. And then when the couple started coming out, the partners coming on the dance floor at that early hour, covered in the rhinestones, like with the spray tan and the makeup and the thing. And it was such a pivotal moment for me of like, wow, you can express yourself like that. Like you can embody these emotions and energies. And it was about the partnership working
Yeah.
together. It was this, there was no words, but everybody was so in tune and so in sync, basically like reading each other's energy. You're turning on that sensing ability because it's all happening so fast, propelling their bodies through space at such a rate of explosive
Mm.
movement. And it was everything I think I wanted to be. It was like the inner me that was like, I wanna do this. I wanna play. Like I
Mm.
want this part of myself to come out. And I had not connected with that part of myself like as a woman. It was very much, growing up in the environment, the small town that I was in, it was very much like behave, be nice, smile, don't rock the boat, don't be too
Mhm.
loud, don't like there was a lot of don'ts and a
Mm.
conforming and a fitting in. And what I saw happen on that dance floor basically was like the opposite of all of that programming. And I just was like, whatever that is, I want to evoke that in myself. Like I want to exercise that muscle. I want to see what it's like to really just like let yourself out and be
Mm.
bold and loud and take up space.
That's so interesting. So did you feel like there was a pivotal moment when you were working with, partner dancing, when you realized the profound impact of combining physical movement with emotional healing?
Definitely. When it came to a place where and it originated that way with me, where movement
Mm.
was spirituality. And it was, even though I was very young, I knew something was happening. I just didn't know what had happened. And then as we get older, the world kind of tells you, well, what are you going to do with this? Like, what's your path with this? How are you going to make money? How are you going to turn it into a career? And
Right.
then it started to become like an outward thing. It started to become performance and dancing for commercials and dancing to be judged or dancing to win
Mm.
or very much like how you looked at the aesthetic part, but it wasn't really about what was happening on the inside. It wasn't somatic for me yet. It
Okay.
was very much performative on the outside. And I found that like the more I wanted to follow it, the more the world kept saying to me, like, oh, what are you going to do with this? Like, what is it? And that joy that I had started to diminish. It started to be like,
Mm.
pushing myself to be something that I wasn't, being in an energy of performance and competition that didn't really feel like it was genuine to me anymore. So at that point, I started to study and shift more into healing dances. I found people like Gabrielle Roth and the Five Rhythms. I found Shiva Ray and yoga trance dance. I found a bit more of the somatic practices where movement was like, okay, it's not just for the external, it's actually about what's happening on the inside. But through that moment of competitive ballroom dance, when it came to partnership, I found that I learned a lot about emotional healing around connection and
Mhm.
relationship that I just
Mhm.
didn't, it was like information I didn't have. I don't feel that I had tools around healthy communication, how to speak and how to listen, how to work together to find a common goal of repair. Because in partner dance, there's no time to be like who's right. Like you're
Mm.
just like you're coming together, your objective is to move together, but there isn't any time to be like, well, I'm right and you're wrong. So
Mm.
that way to work as one and for like a common goal that's something bigger was a big healing process for me.
That's so interesting. So I don't have much experience with partner dancing. I started a matter of years ago. My husband and I owned a boutique fitness studio in Encino, and one of our clients was a salsa instructor. And so we would have salsa nights, and they were like community nights where everyone would come to the gym, and we would have like Friday night happy hour, like salsa dancing.
Fun.
We would like have charity events and just raise money. And it was so amazing. And then when a good friend of mine was getting married, I was like, that's going to be your wedding gift. I'm going to get you dance lessons with him. And their first dance was so amazing. And they invited my husband and I to take classes with them and learn their dance. And we had so much fun. So that was really my first experience. And I just enjoyed it so incredibly. So I love hearing that. I want to do more of that with that connection. I think that's so, so interesting. So tell me more about the class and how you kind of left television and film and founded this amazing
Mhm.
class.
So there was a period of time where I had left competitive dance and I got really interested with the roots of dance, the essence
Okay.
of dance. I
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
understand the stories of where dance came from. Instead of learning the salsa, like just the moves and feeling disconnected of the how and the why, I wanted to know why salsa was created. Like, how did it
Mm.
come to be? So I embarked on this travel series where I went to Cuba, I went to Africa, I went to Brazil. I traveled throughout Southeast Asia, and I wanted just to hear how the dances came to be. Like a lot of people don't really talk about the birth of these movements
Right, right.
and what is happening maybe historically at that time of how the dance comes to be and how that is a comment of what might be happening historically in that moment of time. So I worked on a series for the Travel Channel, which you mentioned in the intro. And my special aired, I want to say in 2011, where I went to Brazil. And after that, the Travel Channel went through some changes. The VP that ended up loving me and my show was no longer there. They went in a different direction. And I found myself kind of being like, now what? And it's so interesting because I was like, there was nothing in me that for one moment doubted that this wasn't going to be the path. I was so convinced. I was like, this is the thing. This is my thing. This is what my offering is to the world. This is the story I want to tell. And I kept kind of pushing and trying to figure out how to resurface it and how to bring it around and how to find somewhere else. And at the same time, my friend, Taryn Toomey, who's the founder of the class, I got reconnected with her via another friend, and I sent her a message and I just said, hey, I ran into our friend Melinda. She's telling me about this thing that you created, and this is in 2013. I would love to come take your class, because we were a part of this same women's group that was really, it was more of like a yoga, spirituality women's group. And we had traveled to Peru together, and we were already immersed in personal growth through spirituality. So I was like, oh, I would love to take your class. I ended up taking her class in 2013, and this is the very, very, very beginning for her. I mean, you couldn't even, it was like donation only. The room was packed. There was 38 women in there buzzing. And in the first few seconds when the class started, I just was like, wow, it was that first hit like I got with dance. This is for me. This is a yes. I don't know what's happening here, but I want to be a part of this. And this is going to really revolutionize fitness from a thing that like we do to check a box that's outwardly, but it's something that we do to check in inwardly. So it was a mashup of my spiritual background, yoga, competitive dance, ecstatic dance, and exercise all together while you're having like an incredible therapeutic moment with yourself.
I mean, I'm sold. That sounds ridiculous, honestly. That's amazing. So this was 2013, and where was the class taught then?
So the class started in Tribeca, and Taryn was living in Tribeca,
Wow.
and she originally started it just in the gym of her building because while she was working in the corporate world, she was also a yoga teacher and a fitness instructor, personal fitness instructor. So she started just like teaching one person, and really it came through her on her own pathway around grief and healing. It was like, it just kind of very organically, she was moving her body in a way that felt good for her. And it just started to naturally express itself in this kind of sequencing. She started teaching it to one person, they brought a friend, then another person brought a friend, and then eventually it got too big to do in the gym in her building. So she ended up renting her daughter's dance studio. And there's like Barbies on the wall, like the whole thing, and started teaching people there. And then that person brought a friend and brought a friend. And the next thing you know, the room is filled. But it wasn't from a place of like, I'm going to start a business and here I am with my business plan. It was like this thing she needed for herself. And then it just so happened that so many other people needed it too.
Honestly, I think that that is the key to success is when you're not thinking about monetizing anything and you are coming from your most authentic self. Because if you're saying, if this works for me, this is going to work for someone else. And I can't tell you how many times, I've posted something or said something just with what I'm personally going through, where people are like, are you in my head? I'm going through the same thing. And look at how that has grown. So when did the second location open up in Los Angeles?
So we opened, so that was 2013, I took my first class. In 2016, we opened our Tribeca studio, our own class studio. And then 3 years ago, 2022, we opened our Santa Monica studio. And then I moved out here from New York to LA 3 years ago to help open this. And we're right on Main Street, right by like Ocean Park and Pico.
Oh, that's amazing. And so were you one of the founding teachers?
So I was one of the founding teachers, and
what year was this?
This was 2014.
Okay.
So I took my first class in 2013. I taught in the fall. I taught my first class in January 2014. And then I started helping Taryn, and there was another founding teacher at the time, Natalie, with training teachers and helping to build some kind of structure for what this is. And then today I'm the chief experience officer here at the
That's
class.
amazing. That's so, so neat. So the class emphasizes, and correct me if I'm wrong, curiosity,
Mhm.
vulnerability, and authenticity. How do you cultivate these principles within your students?
So a lot of it is the space we create. And as the facilitator, you're kind of like the conductor of energy. So it starts really with your own work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing your own work to get your energetic frequency in a space that is open and welcoming without judgment, without agenda, so
Mm-hmm.
that others can get what they need. So much of it is like attuning yourself
Mm-hmm.
to something bigger, is my language, where you're kind of clicking out of the ego part in the mind and coming into the energetic field. And for anyone listening, and this kind of sounds out there, I totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
But it begins with you. And
Yes.
then everything that we cue and curate through the movement is all invitation. And I love that so much because fitness, for me, my experience was like almost like a punishment, something we did because we had to or look a certain way. There
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't this permission and consent and conversation around you're guiding this. Like, you take it
Mm-hmm.
wherever you want to go. Let it look different than the person next to you. Let it feel different than
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. But all that matters is you're taking it where you need it authentically.
That's so I so agree with that. So when I started with so when I was dancing, I transferred from dancing to becoming a personal trainer in 2009 or 2010. And I started with like ballet bar classes and just creating like Pilates style classes, mat Pilates and ballet bar. And back then it was the culture of weight loss. And I had to try to shift a lot of people's mindset from skinny to strong,
Yes.
really, and really focus on, this exercise is not a punishment for what we ate. It's a celebration for what our body can do and kind of changing the culture to that. And that's so important to me. And I taught so many different levels, and I'm assuming you do too. Like, how do
Yes.
you welcome individuals of all backgrounds and all levels in your
Mhm.
class?
Well, the great thing about the class is that the movements, it's an intense workout, but the movements are simple and repetitive. So there isn't a lot of choreography, and they're very accessible in
Mm,
you could do the cardio impact or not do the cardio impact. You could be in the plank or drop your knees.
mhm.
There's a lot of options and variations for people to take to meet where they are. There are sometimes people that are maybe coming back from surgery, or they're working with a repetitive injury or something, and everybody is welcome to do their own thing. So sometimes you'll see people just standing with their hands on their body, or tapping and shrugging their shoulders, or at times taking rest. And that way the energetic process can continue to happen, but they're physically moving in a way that meets them where they're at. And that
Mm,
too requires, just like you said, for all of us to move out of like, oh, I can do this differently, or I don't have to do what that person is doing, or this
mhm.
expectation we put on ourselves that it's like we need to do all the jumping and all the push-ups and all the things
Right,
to get something.
right. Okay, that's really good to know because I was diagnosed with breast cancer last May. And I've gone through a couple of surgeries and a whole lot of PT.
Mhm.
And I've just recently graduated from PT, and I was invited to certain dance classes and I haven't
Wow.
taken one in quite some time. And I was so insecure because I didn't have range of motion in my upper body for a very, very long time. So that makes me feel good knowing that anyone can show up, get the
Yes.
same effect and the same result and have like modifications along the way. So that's amazing.
100%. We have people in the room that are in a place in their healing where they can't use their upper body at all. So they're
Mhm.
just like finding a way for the movement to feel good and not causing more stress and harm, because like that's definitely not the direction we
Right.
want to go. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Shifting gears a little bit,
Hmm.
this is a question I ask everyone. Non-negotiables are incredibly important to me. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was so blessed that I had these non-negotiables in place already. So mine, for instance, some of them is the way I eat, my plant-based eating, daily exercise, meditation, self care practices and rituals, growth mindset, connection, community. These are just a few of what I hold so dear to my heart every single day. What are some of your non-negotiables that you have?
This is a great question. Movement is definitely up there. Movement
Hmm.
is medicine, some kind of conscious movement, and I teach anywhere around 4 to 5 classes a week. And then I part of my job is taking class,
Love
so
it.
I also like take classes with the other teachers, and so grateful for all of that. And I really, what is that non-negotiable is that I'm a student still during the week,
Hmm.
that I'm not just like the person teaching and facilitating, that I am in the seat of a student. Nature is a big one for me, and I
Yes.
feel so blessed moving from New York 3 years ago because I actually get to be in nature here. So
Uh-huh.
whether that's once a week, going to the beach, taking a walk on the beach, or going for a hike, and
Hmm.
it's at some point during my day, and usually it's in the afternoon because I work EST and PST. So I start early and end late. So somewhere in the middle there, there's a moment where I take my dog for a walk. And that little break in my day of like, my dog is definitely my emotional support, everything.
Yes.
And being with her in nature is a non-negotiable at some point every day.
That is amazing. Did you have more that you wanted to share?
And I would say there's like a check. I mean, I very much believe in therapy. I meet weekly with my therapist. That is definitely a big part of taking care of myself, that I make that time to check in and see how I'm doing. And whether that's a check in by myself, or in this case, like I meet with my therapist on Mondays, and it's been just knowing that I have that, as like every Monday is
Yeah.
the day that I do that, it just kind of helps me throughout the week, knowing that the stress and all of the things that I'm going to be starting the next week checking in.
I love that you do that on Mondays. I mean, obviously, never miss a Monday. Like I want to make sure every Monday I hit all of my check marks, but my therapy's on Thursdays. Now I
Oh,
feel like I
wow.
should move it
Okay.
to Mondays because I
Thursday's good
think
too.
I think that's so brilliant to start your week off like that.
Mhm.
And nature has been huge for me because when I couldn't run anymore, I had to walk. When I couldn't do X, Y, and Z, walking was my therapy. And I started forest bathing a lot. And my kids go to school out in pretty much the forest. We drive pretty far. It is so lush and there's trails everywhere.
Wow.
And so, as often as I can, I drop them off early and I go for a little bit of a trail walk before heading home.
Mm.
And it shifts my entire mindset and my entire day. So, I'm right there with you on that. So,
Mhm.
I know that you've been very open about your fertility journey.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to others navigating a similar experience?
I think the first piece is, there's nothing wrong with you. This was
Yes.
a hard one for me because I automatically was like, "Oh wow, I failed. My
Mhm.
body failed. I
Mhm.
failed as a woman.
Mhm.
I failed as a someone in health and wellness." Everyone was like, "You're the epitome of health. How could this be happening to you?" And that first piece of like, I failed, I did something wrong, took me down a very negative spiral that didn't help with anything.
Mhm.
So I think the first thing is like, if you can form a relationship with yourself out of care and love, and really truly believe like you didn't do anything wrong, you're not broken, you're not, you failed,
Mhm.
is a step
Mm.
towards some kind of either repair or recovery, or even if there isn't any resolution. So that first thing of like, be friends with yourself,
Right.
take care of how you're talking to yourself,
Mhm.
um, and create some type of sacred boundaries.
Mm,
So what can happen in my experience is, and have been very open about it because I do think that I myself carried so much shame, and I
mhm.
just was like, we just kind of, because of the statistics being 1 out of 4 couples, it's for everybody to be walking around with that kind of shame is like we need to normalize that this is
Yeah.
1 in 4 couples. So the sacred energetic boundaries are to know who you're going to be in conversation with about this
Mhm.
and who may not be able to be in conversation with you without projecting their own experience onto you. So I feel like it's one thing when you're sharing and it's another thing when people are offering you advice.
Yes.
And that I think is like a thing to watch within yourself as like, okay, am I sharing about my experience or am I projecting
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
experience? So there's a moment where, we're all going to receive different opinions and different ways of thoughts around this. And somewhere in there, you're going to start to feel your energetic boundaries being like, this is making me feel worse about myself and this is making me feel better. And when it starts to feel like, oh, this is actually making me feel worse about myself,
Right.
some kind of way that you're able to energetically bring yourself back to yourself. Thank you, no thank you.
Mhm.
Shift the conversation,
Right.
but in a way where you're protecting yourself and your energy.
Thank you so much for that. That resonates a lot. I've had a lot of really close friends that have gone through infertility journeys too. And I think a lot of people get stuck on how to support and what to say, what not to say. This is a totally different experience, but in my cancer journey, when I started finally telling people, I learned very early on to set my boundaries too, because people want to connect. And that's what
Yeah.
it is. They want to connect, but sometimes they say things that are more hurtful than beneficial, like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, my so and so had cancer and they died. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Stuff like that. Well, okay, I
Yes.
I totally honor your experience, but that is really hard for me to hear right now as a newly
Yes.
diagnosed cancer patient.
Yes.
So, what advice would you give someone that wants to support? Like, what are the
Mm.
right words to
Mm.
say? What are the right things to do?
Really, like, listening. I
Mhm.
love Terry Real when he talks about the definition of holding space. It's creating a space without agenda and judgment.
Mm,
And if there's a way for you to neutralize in yourself of just to listen and really just be in a space of curiosity, kindness, compassion, and empathy without a judgment or agenda, it allows the person to really feel like they have permission and space to just share authentically how they're feeling without. I mean, we're not gonna fix it, like, no one is gonna fix it for me, no, right?
right,
Like, and no
right.
matter who I share with about my fertility journey, not there's that drive where I think, like, we wanna fix it and we wanna solve it and we
Mhm,
wanna make that person better, but what if we just, like, took that off of I can listen to you and your experience and not try to fix it or make you feel better. I can just literally listen to you and maybe ask you to tell me more about that or ask you like how are you feeling
mhm.
versus trying to make myself feel better because I'm uncomfortable with what you're saying.
Yeah, so ultimately holding space.
Yeah.
I think that is such a universal, beautiful language for anyone that wants to support someone going through a challenging time is listening and holding space. I think that's beautiful. Are
Mm.
there any personal rituals or practices that help you stay grounded and connected to your
Mhm.
purpose?
Yes. Water is a big one for me, and I do that by taking baths or showers. And I did some training at the Clairvoyance Center of Hawaii, and
Oh,
the clairvoyance journey is just about clear seeing. And so much of the clear seeing is really moving through anything that's creating static or kind of like a fog when you're feeling into yourself and not feeling clear. So whether I'm in the bath or in the shower, because I give a lot of energy in everything I do, and then I'm also around a lot of energy.
right.
So that moment to release all of the places where my energy maybe has gone that day, and whether that's back to back meetings or it's teaching classes with a lot of people. Or it's just not focusing on myself. So, allowing the water in the shower or the bath to release everywhere my energy went but to call my energy back to myself. So it's kind of like I see them like little tentacles of every conversation I had, everything where I outputted energy.
Yes.
That time is to just see those like little tentacles turn back around and come back to me.
I have a very, very similar practice. And for me, it's salt water. So it's either a good cry,
Hmm.
being by the ocean, or Epsom salt baths.
All very
Those are
good.
like
Yes.
my favorite. But one thing that I do, and my family has never understood this, I take multiple showers a day, and you probably do too because of how much we're moving. But I shower right before bed to visualize everything from the day dripping down the drain.
That's it. Same,
Yep.
same for me. I cannot. I remember when my husband and I, we first were like sharing space together, and I was like, "You don't shower before bed?"
I knew you'd be one
He's
to
like,
shower
he's
before
like,
bed. I knew you'd understand.
you do shower before bed, and then we started kind of having this conversation about what that could be and how that would make sense. Like, do you want to sleep in all of that? Like,
Yes.
do you want to start fresh? And it's so funny now because he'll always say to me like, "Oh, now I can't go to bed without showering because of you."
You
Or
got in his head.
he'll say like, "Oh my God, I can't believe so and so doesn't shower before they go to bed."
See, you guys get me. I feel like no one understands this part of me. And it's such a great ritual
It's
right
so,
before
I
bed to
mean,
have like cozy sleep.
no matter how tired I am, no matter
Yep.
how exhausted I am, that shower is happening, and I never regret it. Afterwards, I'm like, okay, now sleep hygiene is a big one.
Yes.
Like the environment that you sleep in, everything, everything.
That is so amazing. I love that. So I really believe that the class and what you're doing within the class is the future of movement. It should be the future of movement. I don't know if you know, but I'm also a Reiki master practitioner. So I am all about energy healing as well. How do you envision the future of wellness and movement evolving within the
Mm.
coming years?
I see it. I see it being more multidimensional, like what the class is, where
Hmm.
you're able to integrate a couple of different modalities or practices into one. Because I feel like for myself in that earlier time, everything was very separate. Like you had your yoga, and then you went
Hmm.
to the gym, and then it was your
Yes,
strength training, and then maybe you meditated. And it was like, who has 10 hours in the day to do all of this? I
absolutely.
would love to have all of that time, but in general, we don't. So how to how to get more out of the movement, and I don't mean more like more is better, but how it can be more multidimensional. And I think that
Mm.
tracks with how we are talking about mind, body, spirit now. And whereas before maybe that conversation wasn't as prevalent, and there
Hmm.
is so much more focus about mental health and what we experienced through the pandemic and what we're experiencing happening in the world now, from everything from the mental health crisis, but the isolation and loneliness crisis that we find ourselves in, where there can be a deeper integration in whatever it is that we're doing. And whether that is you outside taking a run,
Mm.
you outside taking a walk, but knowing that our bodies are not separate from our heart, mind, and spirit. And we can bring that union into whatever we're doing by focusing on our breath, letting the
Mm.
practice be a little more somatic. And I think we're hearing more about emotional regulation and
Yes.
how to do that because it is so needed, how to be with strong emotions. And as we're seeing things track, I mean, it's not getting less intense.
Right.
It's getting more intense.
Mhm.
So the more intense it gets, the opportunity is to become more adept and have more skills to resource ourselves around the stress and the intensity, because hoping it stops or wishing it's going to stop or trying to make it stop isn't really getting going to get us anywhere.
That's so true. Well, I think you're a visionary. Honestly, I'm so inspired by everything that you teach. What legacy do you hope to leave through your work and teachings?
I feel this is a tough one because I don't it's like there's a part of me that sometimes looks at, well, I know what it is that I'm doing is such in the place of service, and there's like a real humbleness there. And when I go into legacy, sometimes it creates a little bit of a shift of where I'm like, okay, what is that in a humble space? What is
Mhm.
that in a heartfelt, humble space? And
Mhm.
I think every time, or my hope is every time I teach class, there's 20 mats in our studio in LA, and then there's 33 mats in our studio in New York, but we stream in over 70 countries. So my visualization in every class is like there's the bodies that are in the room, and then there's a camera in the room that we're streaming into over 70 countries. And as I'm facilitating, I have this vision of all of the bodies and all of in this global space that we're creating are all tapping in to this kind of movement. And every time we tap in and do this, our practice is a greater practice. It's for that
Mm.
greater awakening and greater good of all beings everywhere across space and time. So everything that I do, I really offer it up as that legacy is like it's not just a transaction of just it starts here and it ends there, but it is creating a wave and a ripple every single time. So every single class can affect hundreds and thousands, and the people practicing can then also affect the people that are in their spaces, and then by one class at a time, we're just kind of like opening up those spaces, creating this kind of frequency and energy in the world is like I feel like the greatest thing I can offer with my time and my body and my space.
Wow. That is extraordinary. I can't wait to take a class. I think I have to do it in person.
Yeah.
I wanna try remotely too, but I really want
Yes.
to be in there and feel the energy
Mhm.
that you and everyone else in the room is really promoting. That's just I just love all of it. We'll put everything in the show notes, but where can everyone find you and find the class?
Yes, so you can go to theclass.com, and theclass.com will direct you to our LA studio, our New York studio, and then our digital studio. And our digital studio, you could download the app, and we have so many different types of classes. You can take them anywhere, do them anywhere, short
Mm.
classes, long classes. We have yoga and meditation as well as the class. And then if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's just at the class, and then mine is just at Jaycee Gossett. And I would, if you're listening to this and you're in LA, please come see us in Santa Monica. I would love to connect and meet with you. Let me know you listen to this podcast, and then can't wait to see you, whether that's digitally or in the room.
That's amazing. And we will be running a 20% off deal for all of our listeners as well. So there's no excuse to miss the class and to miss JC teaching.
Mm,
I just can't wait. I am so honored to have had you today on the podcast and to have had such an amazing conversation with you. I'm so appreciative. Thank you so
same.
much, JC.
Can't wait to move with you. Thanks so much for
Can't
having
wait.
me.
Thank you so much.